Hello! So this evening we're going to have a look at the Fenix Airbus in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So you may have seen I did a video with the A320 from Headwind yesterday, and it didn't go too well. We did our best with it, but there were obvious shortcomings, but you can't really complain because it's free. So the Fenix Airbus is about £40, I think. So it's the other end of the spectrum, but it's absolutely study level, and the attention to detail in it is fantastic. It runs an external flight model, so it flies very much apparently like the real thing flies. You know, it's got like a fake of fly-by-wire essentially. And real pilots that have looked at this have said, yeah, this is by far the best Airbus in Flight Sim 2020 so far. So let's go and jump inside, or Flight Simulator it's now called, isn't it? Not 2020 anymore. We'll jump inside and you can see the attention to detail and the texturing around the cockpit is really second to none. It's very, very good. So everything sounds right, everything looks right apparently. So I've flown on A320s quite a lot with work, and I've looked in the cockpit as I've gone past, and yeah, it's quite uncanny actually how much this looks like what I've seen. Anyway, how do we get started on this aeroplane? The first thing we're going to do is go and look at the tablet over here, which we can press Control and 3 to get to the tablet. If you click on the fingerprint, it lets you into the tablet. Famous last words, you have to hold the mouse button down on the fingerprint. Then we can go into the Fenix app, and the important thing to look at in the Fenix app straight away when it loads is, first of all, you can obviously import from SimBrief, so I'm going to tap the button and you can see there's our flight plan that I've gone and thrown into SimBrief. So we're going from Jersey over to Cardiff, and you can see it's got ground services, and so we'll just have a quick flick through this to have a look at it. So this has got the GPU already connected, the chocks are in place. If you go into mass and balance, you can get your numbers on the aeroplane, which I've already written down on a piece of paper. A piece of paper is the best device in the known universe. And you've got panel states, like for shortcutting the aircraft. But there's a departure performance calculator in here as well. I've already used it. It's very good. You just program in your departure airfield and the various bits of data, and it spits out your V-speeds and advises on flap levels, things like that. Okay, so how do we get the airplane up and running? So I'm going to use a printed checklist. So this is a checklist I wrote some time ago, but I've not flown this airplane in the sim for a very long time, so I'm going to be rusty. So it's going to be a bit of a journey of discovery around the airplane. So we're going to turn the batteries on, in common with all the other Airbuses, and you see various systems come on straight away. If we have external power, we will use it, and we do have it available, so we switch it on. Then we turn the strobes on, which is the switch here, and then the nav and logo goes to option 1. On the APU section, we turn the master switch to on, and then we hit the start button. Or if you do things too quickly in the Fenix, nothing tends to happen. There's a delay while various relays and stuff are kicking in. So we've now started the auxiliary power unit. So if you weren't aware of this, the auxiliary power unit is a small jet engine in the tail of an airliner, and it has an exhaust port at the back there. You can hear it, and you can see the heat pumping out. So it is uncannily realistic in the Fenix. Okay, so we've got the APU up and running. And you can hear various things booting up around the cockpit. The various beeping you're hearing is these screens coming to life slowly. So the next thing we do is we'll go back overhead. We turn the emergency exit lights to armed. We go and turn on the fuel supply, sorry, the crew oxygen supply. I've lost where I am on my checklist, so here we go, master switch to on, start, crew supply to on, emergency exit to armed, and no smoking to auto. So no smoking's down here, so that goes to auto. And then we go for the inertial navigation system overhead. We turn all 3 systems to nav mode, and the lights will slowly go out on them, as they power up, and then we can move the data knob to STS or status and move it to system number 1, and it will tell us how many minutes until the inertial navigation system is aligned. So it uses gyros, and it takes time for them to calibrate and settle down to 8 minutes already. Look, so by the time we're ready to fly, it will be aligned and ready to go. Okay, so we go back down to the MCDU, or the flight management computer now. So it's saying select desired system. We want the FMGC. So this is where we can program our flight from. You can see there's a message at the bottom, nav accuracy upgrade, so we'll clear that. It's also saying GPS primary lost, so we'll ignore that at the moment. That will all come online with the inertial navigation system, so don't worry. We go to init and we put in where we're going from and to. So Echo Golf Juliet Juliet is Jersey, which is in the scratch pad now, and then a slash, and then Echo Golf Foxtrot Foxtrot, which is Cardiff's ICAO code. So we drop that in, and that programs that, but we'll make up a flight number. So A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. We'll put in a cost index of 100, which just happens to coincide with the number I also put into SimBrief. We are going to be cruising at 18,000 feet, not for very long though, it's quite a short journey. We can fetch the wind data from SimBrief, which is quite clever. So we just do a wind request, which I just thought I'd just done. There it comes, it takes a few seconds. So that pre-programs all of the various winds at various altitudes, which makes the computer more accurate. So if we go sideways, we can put in our zero fuel weight, which was 44.0, and we can put in our zero fuel weight center of gravity, which is 26.2. So I got these out of the weight and balance app in the tablet earlier, so it's a bit of a, here's something I did earlier. So block fuel was 9.5, and that's calculated our takeoff weight for us. We've got the message there about the wind data. It's all done. So then if we go sideways again, we come back around to this screen. So if we go to the performance page, we can put in our V-speeds that we calculated in the performance calculator. Oh, not 177, that's a bit fast for a rotate. 117 is the V1 speed, 129 is our rotate speed, and then 129 is also the V2 speed. Flaps would be 1, that's what I put into the calculator. We don't need to worry about flex to temp or anything like that. Transition altitude, you can see, has got 5,000. Should we double check that against Navigraph? So we've got the airfield diagram here for Jersey, and can we see the transition altitude? Maybe it's on the standard instrument departure diagram. They usually hide, there we go. Oh, it is 5,000 feet, sorry, it's correct. It amuses me that the charts are never consistent in their layout. They're always different. Anyway, so next phase, we'll just have a quick flick through this and see what's in here. It all looks good. We don't need to change any of that. So then we can go into the flight plan page, and we can say how we are departing from Jersey. So we are going to go to the departure page then. We're taking off runway 08, and if we go and have a quick look at little nav map, because it's an easy way to see this, we're doing the AUTA 2B standard instrument departure. So if we scroll up, AUTA 2B, there it is. So we filled that in, we're not using transitions, insert that, and then scroll down, and then obviously it hasn't got the rest of the flight plan in yet, so we'll go to Cardiff and select how we're going to arrive at Cardiff. We're coming in ILS runway 12, and we are doing the DAL 1C arrivals. There it is, DAL 1C. Interestingly, it doesn't show transitions. I think I may need to do an update of Navigraph to get them into it. It's interesting that they're not there. Okay. So let's just have a scroll through this, get rid of this discontinuity from it, and insert that. Okay, so it's calculated all the bearings and the tracks for the route now fully automatically, and figured out, you know, what heights we're going to be at along the way, and that's all good. So then, just reading backwards through my notes, we've programmed the flight, we've done the performance data, so now we go and concern ourselves with the master control panel for the autopilot. So you can see it's already got the speed on managed. So if you pull the knob by clicking at the bottom of it, you could go and increase these numbers to a higher number for the climb out for the auto throttle to be defaulting to. So we could say 180 for example. But the only time this would ever come into use is if we had to go to selected mode. So we'll just go back to managed mode. Same goes for the heading. We can go to selected mode and go and pre-key in the runway direction, but you may not ever need it. This would only come into play if you switch to it, you know, when you're traveling. So we're going to go straight for our our cruise altitude on the system, but we may well have the opportunity just to go, you know, and go managed mode once we're in the air. Okay, so it's saying map not available, and some of the data's missing. So if we have a look overhead, how are we doing on the timings? 2 minutes to go. So this will suddenly all fill itself in as soon as the inertial navigation system has stabilized. Okay, so we set the QNH for both sides of the cockpit. We can either do that by looking at the ATIS or the weather data from the airport, or we can press B to shortcut it on the keyboard, and you can see the QNH change to 1007. We need to uncage the standby attitude indicator, which we've now done. So then we go back overhead, so we really are getting close to getting ready now. So back overhead, we turn the seatbelt signs to on. External power to off, because the APU is obviously up and running now. We go back down to the tablet, so Control 3. We go to the Fenix app. We go to ground services, and we tell the cones to be removed and the GPU to be removed, please, which is now done. We go back overhead. We turn the beacon light to on, which is a signal to the ground crews that we are about to start the engines, and we turn the fuel pumps to on, and we begin pushback at this point. So this is where we have the penalty of being in the simulator and not being able to do two things at once. So we're off of the parking brake. I'm just checking that switches and things are in the right places. So we're going to initiate pushback, and that guy over there is doing a bit of a break dance, which is all well and good. Let's just have a look and make sure there's nothing around us. So we could begin turning a tail to the right, and we can control the pushback from inside the cockpit. In the real world, they would start running up the engines at this point. So we'll begin it. So we'll put APU bleed on. We'll turn the ignition system to start, which I've done, and then start engine number 2, which I've done with my controller, and you can see the N2 number is coming up. So this is obviously where it pays to have two people doing these things. So one can be managing pushback and the other can be getting the engines running. So let's go and stop the pushback right there. Put the wheel brakes back on for the moment. Just waiting for the engine to come up. wait for it to stabilise. So unlike the Boeings, the Airbus cross-feeds automatically. So you will see over here, as soon as we start the second engine, so we're going to do it now. So we just flick this. I've got these switches on my controller, which is why I'm not doing it in the cockpit. So you can see it says predictive wind shear is off on the messages. So we lift this up and predictive wind shear is here. Look at the ignition switch, it's having a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? I need to look at my configuration of my controller, I think. So it's complaining at the moment that TCAS is on standby, APU bleed is on. Well, it's not complaining, it's just telling us. Okay, so we can go and turn the ignition system off. Engines are looking good. So the APU bleed can come off, APU master switch can come off. And we're ready to taxi essentially. So we come off the parking brake. And while we are taxiing, we can put the flaps to take off position, which I've just done. We'll advance the throttles gently. So getting the aeroplane moving can be fun. We'll just take a wide berth around this guy's tail, sticking out into the taxiway a little. There's a Hercules. What's he doing here? So we're just taxiing down to runway 08. So on the taxi down, we should have the taxi lights on. Completely forgot about that. So we'll do that. Have a look at this from outside. It's a lovely looking version of the aeroplane. This is the a payware version of Jersey, by the way. I can't remember where I bought it from. It's very good though. I definitely need to recalibrate my joystick. I haven't looked at this for such a long time. Okay, so we'll just line it up with the numbers on the runway. and we'll do our final check around. So I think we're good. I'm just looking at levers and switches, making sure they're all in the right places. So throttles go to the stops. Could reduce the range on the arc mode so we can see what's going on. We're looking at the speed. Here comes rotate. Now. So gear up. Throttles go to the climb detent. So the auto throttles come on automatically. We can switch on the autopilot. Can raise the flaps, and the Airbus takes care of itself from this point out. So we'll go and turn on the landing lights to let other traffic know about our existence. We'll also go and turn on the TCAS now. And we're good to go. Just checking round. Obviously we're not using ATC, otherwise this would have taken 10 times longer as we sat waiting for approval. So where you will see the difference in the TOLIS is the fidelity of these displays and the information they're showing. All of these little marks have meanings, and the rendering of these displays is much more true to the real aircraft. So if we go and put some if there are any nearby. I don't think there are any waypoints nearby. There we go, there's a few of them. Okay, so we come through 5,000 feet, which was the transition altitude, so it's wanting us to go to standard. So it's even prompting us. It's quite clever, isn't it? So it's holding us at 250 knots for the managed speed mode, which is again fully automatic in the Airbus. So something you won't have seen me do during climb out is move the throttles back to align the climb detent. So let's just go and see what's going on. There's a master caution. Barometric discrepancy. Yeah, that was when we were late with it. So we're just coming up towards 10,000 feet now. This thing climbs like a rocket ship, doesn't it? So as we go through 10,000 feet, those landing lights can come back off. And we're on our way on our journey. So you can see the target airspeed has now increased out to 340 knots. Now we've gone past 10,000 feet, the 250 knot restriction is removed. It's interesting that the little markers here haven't animated. I guess you have to do them yourself in this version of the Airbus. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a click spot somewhere to help you do that. But again, all I'm doing operating this today is scratching the surface, because absolutely everything works in this version of the Airbus, including the binnacle compass. So yeah, it's a very, very nice version of the Airbus. So if we go to My Flight, you can see at the moment we are airborne, we're en route. It's very, very good. I don't know if we get much. Oh, you can do Navigraph integration as well. I'd forgotten about that. So this is probably going to ask for a login. Yeah, I'm not going to bother with that while we're flying, because I've got the app running anyway. So there's no point seeing it inside the aeroplane. I can never quite understand that, why you would bother with it. So we're flying out towards the Ortec waypoint, and then we'll fly across and then approach Cardiff. So let's go and have a look actually then while we're en route, just to reacquaint ourselves. We'll put this in plan mode and take it out to 40 miles, and let's go to the flight plan page and step through what it thinks we're doing. So it's going to fly over and back in. Is that correct? Yeah. So it's going to fly over the top and then come back in on a teardrop. So if we look at this on here, this again, this doesn't draw it correctly either. So it's going to, instead of doing this massive teardrop, it's going to turn over the airfield, fly away, turn back in and come back into the airfield. We'll see how it gets on with it. Obviously we can take over if need be. It'd be fascinating to watch it make decisions. Okay, so we'll put this back on arc mode, so it will track our progress. If we put this out to a longer range, we'll see that dog leg in the trip. So just double checking, flaps are up. I'm not sure if the printer works in this version of the Airbus. Probably not. It's a bit of a party piece in the fly-by-wire that it does work, but it's pretty useless that it does work, to be honest. It doesn't really achieve anything. It's still saying, oh, we hadn't pulled, that's why we got the discrepancy. So the barometric pressures are not synchronised. So we can go and turn the seatbelt sign off for a few minutes at least. Let the passengers get up and wander around. Go and race to the toilet like they always do on flights for some reason. So I'm going to pause it here. Pause the recording, sorry, and I'll rejoin you on approach into Cardiff, because obviously this is going to be quite boring for the next 15 minutes or so. Okay, so we're just approaching the turn towards the approach into Cardiff, so we'll begin descending soon. So I thought you might like to see this happen. So we should see the aeroplane turn almost any moment. We're just approaching the coast. And there it goes. So something you notice about the Fenix Airbus versus a lot of the others is just how accurately it will track the route and how accurately it will estimate the turning radiuses to hit the next part of the track. It's very, very good at it. So we're just coming over the edge of the UK. Going to fly over the top of Devon as we come in towards Cardiff. So our next altitude we need to get down to will be essentially, let's have a look at Navigraph, see what it says. So if we go and look on this approach, do we have any specific numbers? Descent planning should be down to 7,000 feet by the Cardiff VOR, basically, or NDB, sorry. NDB directly over the top of Cardiff. So we are heading for 7,000 feet. We're just approaching top of descent, so let's go and change our altitude to 7,000, and we push the knob in towards the aeroplane, which says you do it in your own time, and you will see it will be pulling the throttles back. You can see that happening, and it's increasing the descent rate to hold the speed true as that happens, and it's doing it like an absolute unit. I think the term is, my daughters might use. So you can see a marker here. That is a guideline that we should be trying to hit to descend in time, and it's increasing the rate of descent to chase it. So it's actually chasing the perfect flight plan. It's just madness, isn't it? That all these visual indications you get, and that's what the flight director is chasing as well. So it's almost brought the engines back to idle almost. They're running at 36% on the turbofans. And look, it's chased it, it's caught it up, and the nose is coming up. So it's adjusting its descent. Again, it's chasing the perfect line. So while that's happening, let's go and concern ourselves with, we are the little triangle by the way, drifting in towards Cardiff. Let's concern ourselves with the actual approach in. So we come in at 7,000 feet here, and essentially we are going to turn by the look of it, although it's not going to follow this exactly, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, so maybe we should take control of this and get it to fly 277 and fly the turn ourselves. Because in the real aircraft, it's very rare that they let the airplane do it all itself, because it's got it wrong, look. But it's interesting that they didn't have the transitions, but that's probably my fault. I haven't updated the database since I updated the aircraft. So it probably hasn't got the up-to-date data for Cardiff in its head. So we're down to 13,000, 20 miles away from the turn. So yeah, I'd be inclined to actually fly this as it's written. I don't know enough about the MCDU to be able to draw the tracks on here, but it is possible. I just don't know how. So there's a whole study around the dark corners of the MCDU, which is fully working in the Fenix Airbus. So should we zoom in a bit on this now? It would be interesting just to see what this is going to do, really. So let's have a look at what's the airfield elevation. We can cheat and look in Little Nav Map to find this out really quickly. So Cardiff. Overview. Elevation 220 feet. So we want 2,700 feet when we come through. So this is the coast of Wales coming up. So we should overfly the airfield. There's the airfield down there. So this is as much as me learning as showing you this stuff. It's I find this all very fascinating, of how the different airplanes behave in different ways. It was interesting there were no transitions though. That's kind of annoyed me a little bit. I should have forethought that and gone and done the Navigraph update before I started the flight. So we're still just about on track for the altitude we wanted. Then we're going for 2,700, remember, as soon as we've done that. I mean, we could command it earlier, to be honest. Let's go and go for 2,700. Ask the aeroplane to do it. We have a company message. So if we press, I don't know how you get to the messages. MCDU menu. Oh, is it in here? Too steep path ahead. Is that what the message was? Apparently not. Received messages. Send ADC delay card on company tablet and allocate us. Interesting. So obviously we're not going to do everything they want because we're playing around here. So we're at 7,000 feet, so it's holding 7,000. So that's the restrictions in play for the VNAV, which is happening fully automatically, and now it's doing the descent to 2,700. It's very clever, isn't it? So we're down to 180 knots. We're going to help it stay slow. By giving it some flaps along the way. And obviously giving it some flaps means, oh, we haven't changed the barometric pressure. So we came down to 6,000 feet, which is the transition altitude over the UK. Or this part of the UK anyway. So again, we're below 10,000 feet, so we should have the landing lights on now. This is fascinating to me, just to see what this does. Obviously we can take over if we need to, but it'll be fun just to see what it will do. So it should do a right turn now. Or is it going to fly straight on? How is it going to handle it? So it's flying straight on, then do the turn, and then turn on to final. Interesting.
$2,500.
See, that's what we were aiming for. It's 2,500 above field elevation, knowing that the airfield is 200 above sea level, because that fits with it being the correct altitude above the ILS. Or sorry, for the entry into the ILS, I should say. Okay. So aeroplane should start turning anytime soon. Should we have a look at this happening? What is happening with the speed? Why is it suddenly gone crazy? Okay, I'm going to take over control of the speed and tell it to speed up. So it's giving us some status on the fuel. So I imagine there's something I've missed in the MCDU that would explain why it suddenly wanted to go to 120 knots. Because that's just ever so slightly insane. They'd even tried it. So I'm inclined to hand fly this in, to be honest, because it's otherwise what am I sat here for? So let's come off the autopilot. Moving the throttles across so I can grab them. Turn the auto throttle off. Put this on landing system now. So what we're doing is aiming for we're a bit low. It's interesting though to see how this reacts, to get a chance to actually fly it for a change. So we're waiting for the line to come in here. Why have we got a klaxon? So here comes the glide slope. It feels amazing. It feels like an actual aeroplane that's flying, that's moving around in the air, even though it has fly-by-wire. And that's obviously the huge difference with the Tollis. So I'm going slow on purpose just to see how it feels. And listen to those engines. That's awesome, isn't it? So we'll look to hold about 140 knots on the way in. So it's probably telling us to put the gear down, to be honest. So here comes the localizer. That's the runway out ahead of us. So we're on speed, a little bit above the glide slope, aligned with the runway. It's very easy to fly, but it feels like it's moving around. It feels like a big heavy lump. Okay, we're getting a little bit high, so I'm going to come off the throttle slightly and adjust. Yeah, it would be boring, wouldn't it, if we'd let it come in on fully automatic. So I think the horn we heard was just that we hadn't got the gear down. So we're on full flaps now. Shall we have a look at it from outside? Puppies look good. Speed is okay, a little bit slow, but it's okay. Going a bit low. Again, the 737 pilot that's looked at this in quite some detail in Flight Sim
100
said the final approach is wrong in terms of the PAPIs usually.
50, 40, 30, 20, retard. 5.
Yeah, so I've drifted that far too long. So we've got the reversers on. Down to okay, flaps up. We just roll along. Didn't quite make the exit there, so we'll just gently increase the throttles. On the taxi back, if we can steer in a straight line, we go and turn off the landing lights. We turn the strobes to off. We turn the nose was on taxi anyway, but more importantly we go and turn the master power switch on and get the APU fired up ready for when we get back to the gate in case there is no external power. Engines take a little while to spool up. You saw that then. I actually moved the throttles quite some time ago, so it's something to keep in mind that spooling up from idle takes a while. That was good fun. I wonder where we're going to park. That's the next question. Shall we do this number 10? Much easier to judge this from this outside aerial view, isn't it? A bit closer maybe. Okay, parking brake on. Now, can we control this from the cockpit? Have they integrated it? So if we go in here and say, actually we ought to turn the engines off first, didn't we? So we've got the APU is already up and running. So if we choose to at this point, we can go and turn the engines off, which I have to do via the switches, and I keep forgetting that. So the engines will now spool down, and you can see that happening. The crossfeeds will go back over to the APU automatically. So if we go and look up overhead, we can go and turn off those fuel pumps that we turned on earlier. And we can turn... we have got external power available actually. So what we could do, if we go Control 3, deboard. Deboarding, hurrah! Ground services. So if we go and say, yeah, the chocks have already been put in then, and the GPU, so that was automatic. Okay, interesting, good to know. So we could go to external power, and then we can turn off the APU. And then basically you can go around turning everything off that we turned on around the aeroplane. It's as simple as that. So the inertial navigation system comes off. The nav lights can go off, the beacon light can come off now because the engine's not running, the nose taxi light can go off, the lights can be retracted, let the passengers... oh, we didn't put the seatbelt sign on approach. Again, not following a checklist. So it just shows, doesn't it? You could do this 100 times, and again, if you're talking as well, it tends to mess you up, or it messes me up. When I do an ATC controlled flight, I tend to be a lot more present, if that makes sense. So I'm much more mindful of everything that's going on. That's all looking good. So obviously it's complaining about lots of things, having no pressure or low power or lots of other things. So turn off the predictive wind shear as well. Turn off... TCAS should have come off on the taxi in, and we didn't do that either. Again, no checklist. Okay, so we are pretty much there. So once we are happy to shut the engine down, obviously the engines will take a while to cool down, we can just go and turn off the external power and then turn off the batteries. Now the thing that interests me is, while this tablet is still working, can we get the jet bridge forward stairs? So what's that going to do? Oh, it's just connected the stairs to do a manual deboard. Okay. So can we do the cargo as well then? But we don't get stairs for the back, I guess. Toggle jetway. Aha, so we can have the jetway. Presumably I need to remove the stairs. Or not. Oh well. Mind you, that does look like it's concreted in, which is a bit of a shame. Should we put the stairs back on and then we'll call it a day. Okay, so there you go, the Fenix Airbus, which is a bit of a monster. But the nice thing about it is it's reliable and consistent. So if you're wanting to do a flight, it's very good. While this was running, I also ran Volanta in the background. So it's automatically finished the flight. So if we go and review the flight, we can see our flight that we did, and we can see it in 3 dimensions. So you can see that there's our departure from Jersey, then our cruise across the channel, and then our descent in towards the south of Wales, and then our turn back in and approach, and we can get a review of the landing there. So 87 feet per minute, 103 knots, 30 degrees, 5 knot wind, 1.01 G. That's not a bad landing really, is it, considering I haven't flown this plane for months. So obviously you can get some data on your flight there in Volanta. Volanta is very good, and you can write some notes if you want, put some screenshots in. Yeah, so I'm not going to dig too far into Volanta today, but it's just very, very good. Obviously you can see other people playing Volanta, or with Volanta, if you want to see where they are in the world. So if we go and turn them, he says map settings. You have to go to map to see them. There we go. So the other people that are flying right now. And there's the VATSIM people, there's the VATSIM ATC coverage, if there is any. Oh my word. Anyway, we were here to look at the Fenix Airbus, not to play with Volanta. I'm easily sidetracked. It's very good, isn't it? It's very, very good. You need a bit of a beast of a PC to use it, to keep it smooth, because it's doing so much more outside of the simulator. But other than that, it's just great fun. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. So that was the Fenix Airbus in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I'll see you again soon.